Welcome to Aslan Media. Our book of the month for July is by Imam Feisal Rauf. It is called Moving the Mountain. Imam Feisal, of course, is the founder and CEO of the Cordoba Initiative, and he's also the visionary behind the Cordoba House in New York. He's written a number of books. He's been an American Goodwill Ambassador abroad. He's a much sought-after speaker, and for millions and millions of Muslims around the world, he is the true representative of what American Islam truly means. Imam Feisal, thank you so much for joining us on Aslan Media.
Thank you so much for having me on, Rosa. It's a pleasure to be with you again.
You talk about so many things in this book, but I feel like I want to get right to the thing that's most in the news, which is the Arab Spring. It's really interesting. One of the things that you say is that the Arab uprisings, as well as the death of bin Laden, are a kind of turning point for Muslims. What do you mean by that?
Well, what I mean by that is that a good part of what arouses the sentiment or the emotion in many young men to commit acts of violence is the fact that in their own countries they don't have the opportunity to be stakeholders in their own country. They don't have jobs, they don't have opportunity to be stakeholders in the two important aspects which people want in any society: the opportunity to play a role in government and the opportunity to be more successful economically. And the hope of democracy in many of these countries is to provide the growing numbers of young people the opportunity to become such stakeholders. If you look at the history of what happened in Europe before democracy became the rule, you had people talking of revolution and rebelling and so forth. And this is why democracy, this is one reason why democracy is very important.
Well, do you think that it also maybe changes the perceptions that Americans and Westerners in general have of the young people in the Middle East, of Muslims in general, when they see these young people standing up for democracy, for political participation? Does it change the way that Americans think about them?
I'm hopeful that it will, indeed, yes, because many people have felt that the Muslim world doesn't want democracy, but the fact of the matter is that everywhere in the world, and I mean everywhere in the world, people want government of the people, by the people, for the people, and not a government that is, serving where the people serve the government.
Of course, what a lot of Americans of certain political persuasions, let's say, are afraid of is this idea that with these elections, these religious conservatives might take power, and then they'll make Islamic law the law of the land. You say something very interesting in Moving the Mountain, which is that Sharia is actually part of democracy. That it's good for democracy in the United States, which, of course, as you know, would blow some people's minds. Explain to us what you mean by that.
Well, that's why I devote chapter 6 of my book to.
Yeah.
I have convened a project called the Sharia Index Project, in which I invited a group of very well-known scholars of Islamic law to define what an Islamic state means from the point of view of Islamic law, Sharia, to create a methodology and measurement and hopefully to rank countries by how well they conform to such a definition. First of all of the Sharia's objectives, and this is something which was written 1,000 years ago, a good 700 years before Thomas Jefferson penned the words of the American Declaration of Independence, which says, our American Declaration of Independence says that we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, endowed by the Creator with certain inalienable rights, among which are life, liberty, and property. And property was then edited out and exchanged with the pursuit of happiness. 700 years before these words were written, Muslim jurists had pretty much achieved consensus that all the objectives of the Islamic law can be summarized in 6 what is called maqasid of the Sharia, or objectives of the Sharia, which are the protection and furtherance of life, of dignity, of religion, of intellect, of property, and of family. And as often said, what do we seek after life? Life is common to the Declaration. The idea of human dignity, or karama in Arabic, or the Arab, This is something which evolved even over the years, over the centuries, but essentially covers the aspect of human dignity and human rights. And what do we do to pursue our happiness? We seek property, we seek a job, we seek, financial well-being, we seek to marry our loved ones and have families and take care of them. We seek our intellectual pursuits, whether it's going to university or solving a crossword puzzle, as many of us, including myself, like to do. And we seek to practice our beliefs, which is the idea of religion. So this pretty much shows the compatibility between the American social contract and Islamic law. Then the question goes on that government is established to further these rights and protect these rights to the people. Our scholars define the Islamic State as a state in which God's sovereignty is acknowledged. And the acknowledgement of God's sovereignty is one of the key opening lines where we say in the declaration, where these rights are endowed to us by the Creator. They're given to us by God, not by any human agency. That is why they are inalienable, because they inhere in the very fact we are human. Every human being has these rights. Then the declaration goes on, talks about the laws of nature and of nature's God. Well, that's what to Muslims is the Sharia. It's God's law and commandments to us. Our scholars said that an Islamic state is one in which God's law is recognized, is expressed on the earth by two means. One is acknowledgement of God's law, and two, the collective khilafah or vice regency of the community. And they unanimously agreed that in today's world, the vice-regency of the community is expressed through elections of the people and the collective will of the people regarding their rulers and anything that the rulers may vote or or take a poll from their community on. So we see how democracy is very much in keeping with Islamic laws, Islamic principles, Islamic values, and the remarkable congruence between what America stands for and what the ideal Islamic state would stand for. So what I'm hoping is that these ideas will dominate, and that our American government, State Department, the policy makers, and those who are engaged with the Muslim world will urge or lobby for an understanding or interpretation of Islamic law based on this definition, and not on what I call the Taliban definition, which is based upon applying the penal code, 6th, 7th century penal code of Islam, which from many centuries ago has not unanimously or always been applied.
Is that what you mean when you write in the book that American Muslims are in a position in which they can become sort of the Muslims who reclaim the true message of Islam, the true message of Sharia, the true message of the Prophet, and that can become sort of a model for Muslims around the world? Is this kind of what you're talking about?
Absolutely. Two things I mean by that. One thing is that American Muslims have the responsibility right now and have the ability and the freedom to practice an understanding of Islam that embraces the classical understanding of diversity within Islam. If you ask most Muslims who are Sunnis how many madhabs, how many different interpretations of Islamic law, they'll unanimously say that we know of at least 4. The problem is most Muslims today who are passionate, and I ask them, well, if you believe that there are 4 ways to be right, why do you act like there's only one way to be right? And even from 50 years ago, when Sheikh Mahmoud Shaltut or Sheikh Al-Azhar acknowledged the Ithna Ashari madhab, the dominant school of interpretation of law that is practiced by at least 85% of the Shia community in the world as being a legitimate, we now have the concept of a fiqh al-madhab al-khamsa, which is the understanding of Islamic law according to the 5 majority schools of law to which at least 90% of the global Muslim community adhere to. So here in America, we have the opportunity to demonstrate an understanding which embraces this diversity, where within a concept of a unified Muslim community in America, But also more importantly, or equally importantly, as Muslims in the remaining superpower, we have both a role and a responsibility to act as effective interlocutors between our country and the Muslim world. So I'm hopeful that a growing generation of young men and women, particularly people like yourself, Reza, who can help our country, this country, the United States of America, to engage with the Muslim world in a more intelligent fashion, so that we're able to translate our values and show how our values and their values are the same, and how we can evolve an Islamic democracy, which is something that we would be comfortable with.
Last question, and I know that this might be a tough one to answer in a quick manner, but how would you define American Islam? If you were trying to sort of explain to someone what American Islam in your view is, what would you say?
Well, I talk about this in my book, actually, in the last chapter, although it's sprinkled throughout the book as well. The easiest way to understand this is to for non-Muslims, is to relate it to the experience of Catholics and Protestants and Jews in America. When Catholics came to America, within 3 generations, they established an American Catholic identity in terms of theology, in terms of, in the case of the Catholics in particular, their role in bringing the Vatican away from their previous position of non-separation between church and state, to having the Vatican acknowledge and accept the notion of separation of church and state as understood in the American context. Similarly, American Judaism evolved in America, or should I say Judaism evolved in America, as it, as Catholics did as well. And you have the American conservative movement, the constructionist movement, the Reform Judaism. These are all uniquely American interpretations of their particular faith, which evolved in America. And this is something which has happened throughout history, not only to those religions, but even to Islam. When Islam spread from the Hijaz to all the various parts of the Muslim world, it evolved in its jurisprudence, which is why we have different schools of interpretation. And even within one, Imam Shafi'i, when he moved from Iraq to Egypt, anyone who studies Islamic Law 101 will know that his fatwas changed. That we speak of the Iraqi fatwas of Imam Shafi'i and his Egyptian fatwas. So this is something which, in the area of jurisprudence, in the area of law, in the area of architecture, in the area of calligraphy, in the area of music, in all the various cultural expressions, in the area of institutions, we have to evolve an Islam that is American in its theology, in its law, in its architecture, in its music, in its institutions, and so forth. And that's what I mean by we need to evolve an American Islam.
The book is called Moving the Mountain by Imam Feisal Rauf. It is our Aslan Media Book of the Month pick for July. Imam Feisal, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much, and I hope your readers will take to the beach with them. Thank you, Reza.